Hello, and welcome to Good Game, the show for gamers by gamers. I'm Barjo.
And I'm Hex. Oh, I don't know about you, Badge, but I'm exhausted, and I think my shoulder is actually frozen in place somehow.
Yeah, same. I think they call that Diablo shoulder.
Ugh.
But no time to relax this week, Hex, because we've got one of the most anticipated shooters of the year, Max Payne 3. Slow motion goodness.
Plus, Goose walks us through Rockstar's gaming history, and we'll be reviewing the sci-fi shooter Starhawk.
But first, can you guess the game for this week?
News time, Barjo!
Good game!
Several of the year's most anticipated titles have joined BioShock Infinite and been delayed to 2013. Gearbox Software announced Aliens Colonial Marines will ship globally on February 12th for Xbox and PS3, with the Wii U version's release date to be confirmed later. Crystal Dynamics' Tomb Raider reboot and Obsidian Entertainment's South Park: The Stick of Truth have been pushed back to early next year. There have been a growing number of reports of Diablo 3 accounts being hacked. In many cases, the affected accounts have been stripped of all in-game items and gold. Blizzard has stated so far that all cases investigated were hacked through traditional means, adding that no accounts protected by authenticators were breached. However, several victims of the hack have claimed they were using authenticators.
We were meant for more than this. To protect the innocent.
Development on Devil's Third, the upcoming title from Ninja Gaiden creator Tomonobu Itagaki, has been put on hold. The game's publisher THQ has stated they are currently looking for financial partners to help finish the game. However, if they fail to find a partner, the project may be cancelled altogether.
Good game!
Starhawk, the spiritual successor to the 2007 title Warhawk, has arrived on PS3, featuring new vehicles, weapons, characters, a cool Firefly-esque space western setting, and tower defense. Set in the future, humanity has managed to harness the power of rift energy to travel between the stars. It's a powerful substance that can be cleverly used by humans, but if it's not used wisely, it can turn a person into a crazed mutant as well. Emmett is a merc who travels around helping rift miners defend their posts against the rift-addicted mutants.
And it's here that you'll be introduced to the various defense mechanics that you'll need to employ to protect you and your buddies against oncoming foes. By hitting triangle, you'll bring up a radial menu that allows you to build things like walls, turrets, sniper towers, supply bunkers, and fuel depots with vehicles. And some of these structures can be upgraded once they've been built. Say if you've built a wall and need to put a gate in it so that you can get out even if enemies can't get in.
Rift energy is the currency, and you can get it by destroying barrels or enemies themselves. They're so pumped full of the stuff you can just harvest it from them when they die.
And there's certainly a wonderful freedom brought to the world of the third-person shooter where you think, man, I could really use a sniper tower right now. Oh, wait.
I got the top captain on the horn. I'm patching you in. We're only half loaded.
Oh, I'm out of ammo. I guess I'll just build a never-ending supply bunker.
The buildings all fall from the sky, which is fairly hilarious.
Yeah, it's such a satisfying thud when it lands, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's actually a buddy you've got up in an airship who apparently has access to a never-ending supply of walls and towers that he can send down from the heavens for you. But it's a suitably wacky concept that really fits in with the way they've incorporated these building elements into the game.
That said, certain campaign scenarios only unlock certain items, so it becomes more about where do I place what I've got, as opposed to thinking of interesting combinations of what I've got to achieve my objective, and I think I would have preferred it to be like that.
There's a pretty decent mix of guns here, although the actual gunplay is a little bit unsatisfying because I felt like none of the guns really had enough weight or heft to them, so often it feels like you're just pouring bullets into nothing. But things like locking onto an enemy aircraft with a missile launcher work well, and it's nice to have the reassuring banter of your sky buddy.
That's how you grab a scam.
Starhawk's tower defense missions and shooter sections are peppered with space battles from within your trusty Starhawk.
I found the transition into these sections was a little bit clunky. I'd feel as though I was just settling into how things work on land when suddenly Emmett's in space, flying between spaceports, taking out raiders, and then back on land building walls again.
They do make for a nice change though, and it does prepare you for using those Starhawks in multiplayer, but yeah, a smoother transition would have been nice.
I just didn't enjoy those flying missions at all, which I know is 50% of what Starhawk is about, but I just found them just generally joyless and repetitive.
Yeah, I didn't like them either. Don't get me wrong, I love a transforming spaceship, and I like the space backdrops.
Never get tired of that.
But the controls were a bit floaty, and also, for a start, don't build a space station near an asteroid field. That just doesn't make sense. And secondly, if you're going to have a futuristic gun on a ship, it shouldn't overheat. Modern Gatling guns today don't overheat. It's madness. Space madness.
The story campaign isn't that long, but it's worth playing through, as I guess the whole thing acts as a kind of tutorial for where the real fun is, the multiplayer. It's 32 a server with 5 maps to play through in your standard modes. Once you spawn in your zone, you have a few precious moments to build what you can before an enemy onslaught. And this is where the genre mashup really shines, I think, Barjo.
I agree. The action on its own isn't great, and the building isn't brilliant either, but put them together and you get a fresh spin on things, especially Capture the Flag, which I think is the most fun. Putting little turrets up to defend your flags, ripe for shenanigans.
My first few games were pretty soul-destroying, I have to say. I just feel like parts of it are a little unbalanced. I was so excited about fortifying my team's area with walls and turrets, eagerly anticipating their barrage of attacks on foot or by vehicle, but often the enemy would just spend all their points straight away building a Starhawk, which meant they could just fly in and blow the crap out of everyone. Yeah, all right. You jerk.
It does feel like the path to victory is building your own Hawk every time, so it does turn into a bit of a Hawk-off.
Didn't do much for me though. Spent the entire match just trying to get over there. Yeah, here I come. Yeah, I'm coming. Be there in a second. Yeah, I'm gonna get the. Oh crap.
And once you get a Hawk in there too, there's quite a bit of camping because you can take out a player just as they respawn before they have a chance to get something to compete with. Player tactics tend to shift and change when you go into the other game modes and different maps, and after a while I was quite enjoying the power play struggle between the two sides.
Yeah, there's also some flying only maps, which I have to say I enjoyed a lot more than the single player missions. Taking players out with rockets and pulling off crafty evasive maneuvers is way more fun when playing with real people. There's also a co-op wave mode, which didn't do much for me, but it's a decent challenge.
I have to applaud the developer though for trying something new, and I think this would be quite popular online because you can get creative with your defensive strategies. It would have been nice to have some more vehicles though, but I had a pretty good time with this, Hex.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get into the story campaign at all really, but I had a surprising amount of fun in the multiplayer, so I'm giving it 6.5.
7.5 from me. I'm making a game that will change the world.
I'm in.
I'm in.
Now I have a machine gun.
I'm in. No, I don't like it.
No, it's fine the way it is.
What's going on?
Aaron doesn't like my character designs.
There's too many legs. I'm not animating all those legs.
It's a freaking centipede.
Too many legs.
Norm, what do you think?
All he does is play Dwarf Fortress.
What should I do?
Beats me. I got no people skills. That's why I carry this axe.
You need to make them feel like a team.
No, it's fine the way. Norm's down!
We gotta get him out of there.
Cover me!
Sparta!
Get to the chopper!
Thank you.
More Tiny Power coming soon.
Now it's time for Goose to have a look at how Rockstar have changed the gaming landscape.
If someone mentions Rockstar games, the first thing you'll probably think about is Grand Theft Auto. But looking at the bigger picture, it becomes clear that Rockstar have really made a name for themselves, creating a whole range of gritty and mature titles that let us explore the world like never before. As their games usually took place in cities like LA and New York, you wouldn't have guessed, but Rockstar actually started out as a small Scottish developer by the name of DMA Designs. Their first hit was the PC puzzler Lemmings. It was their next 2 games, though, that would become the building blocks for the juggernaut we know today. Nintendo first signed them to produce the sci-fi shooter Body Harvest for the N64. But Nintendo wasn't a fan of the game's violence, asking DMA to tone it down and add more puzzles. DMA refused and walked away from the deal. As it happened, their next game was even more mature. Sony capitalized on Nintendo's decision and signed the original Grand Theft Auto for the PlayStation.
Grand Theft Auto.
The freedom of being able to run riot through a city, stealing and shooting anything you wanted, proved to be a strong action game template, but the 2D overhead view felt a bit dated and many gamers chose to look down on it. Then Rockstar added Body Harvest's 3D perspective to the mix with GTA 3, and the result was unlike anything we'd ever seen in a game. It was released near the end of 2001 with minimal marketing fanfare, but luckily word of mouth spread like wildfire and made it one of the year's best-selling games. And while the missions in GTA 3 were great, it was the world that they created that was the real star. I got so sidetracked with this game that it took me a couple of weeks to even get off the first island, and I still remember every inch of the place. You could always find something interesting to do on every corner of that city. Plus there were those ridiculous cheat codes. Lost your car? No worries. This little beauty always came in handy whenever someone brought his fist to a tank fight. For the next locale, Rockstar took us on a neon-lit, synth-pop-inspired trip back to the 80s with Vice City. Gangster films were always a big inspiration for the series, and Vice City upped the star factor with Ray Liotta voicing Tommy Vercetti, an entrepreneurial businessman with big plans for this new town. But as you'd expect from a GTA game, it doesn't all go smoothly.
Look, Sonny, we were set up. The deal was an ambush.
The hugely popular series was then taken to new heights with San Andreas. It added new characters, vehicles, included a neat Gang Wars minigame, and for the first time, it let us escape the big smoke and head for the hills or the desert.
Welcome to the jungle. We got fun and games. We got everything you want. How do we know the names? We are the people that can find.
When the current consoles arrived, Rockstar used them to power its most ambitious and explosive title yet. Riveting stuff, that. But it wasn't long until Rockstar learnt how to harness the power of next-gen consoles properly. GTA 4's New York-inspired city had a level of detail and cinematic style that we'd never seen before. I remember taking cabs everywhere in this game just so I could moodily stare out the window at passers-by in the rain. Thankfully, the clunky controls of the earlier GTAs had also got an overhaul, resulting in some top-notch combat and some realistic driving for once. Over the years, Rockstar has been cast as gaming's bad boy. Their titles regularly stir up storms of controversy, the most persistent being GTA's strong sexual elements. Combining these adulterous acts with the already over-the-top violence and freedom led many games in the series to make headlines for all the wrong reasons.
We got you from every angle.
More protests surrounded Rockstar's high school adventure, Bully.
You must be the Hopkins boy.
Where'd you come from?
The game was incorrectly vilified for being a bully simulator. And while it was possible to attack innocent kids, it wasn't encouraged.
Now let me see. You've done a lot of naughty things, haven't you?
While a lot of the controversy surrounding these games was blown way out of proportion, Rockstar's next title, Manhunt, was an entirely different beast. It put you in the role of a convicted crim murdering his way to victory. There was a strong focus on the torture-style kills, and it had a really disturbing snuff flick feel. As a result, Manhunt was banned in Australia, and its sequel never did arrive on our shores. As well as creating their own blockbusters internally, Rockstar had a knack for spotting potential hits that others had discarded. When Capcom halted development of Red Dead Revolver, Rockstar saw the potential in its slow-mo shooting mechanic, so they revised it and added their own gritty touches. Rockstar's signature open-world gameplay was later injected into the sequel, Red Dead Redemption. It was a stunning love letter to spaghetti westerns of old. Some serious artistry was used to turn the dusty plains into truly memorable locations and vistas. The next troubled child Rockstar adopted was L.A. Noire.
We'll handle the 211.
After several years in development, Sony walked away from the project, but despite its problems, Rockstar saw potential in the ambitious graphical and storytelling devices. 7 years later, we got LA Noire, a game that steered away from the explosive action, instead rewarding the patient, methodical gamer.
You did well in there.
Not all of Rockstar's children have been troubled, however. Max Payne, for instance, was a hit right from day one. It fused the slow-mo bullet ballet of films like The Matrix with the murdered cop out for revenge storyline from The Punisher. And while it ticked every cliche in the book, the expertly executed action set up the series for an even more interesting sequel before Rockstar finally brought the franchise in-house for the third game.
Flag! Max, 911! Bad guys with big guns!
Rockstar Games have always led the charge as a mature developer, and while they have faced their fair share of controversy, most of it has now shifted into the background, allowing them to do what they do best, make great games. So the next big question, is Max Payne 3 one of them?
Good game.
Thanks, Goose. Max Payne 3 shows what Rockstar can do when they don't need to render an entire open world. It sets the bar very high for its genre in everything it does, and it's one of the most impressive shooters we have ever played. Just a warning, some of the images you're about to see may be disturbing to some viewers.
I didn't find my way out of this mess. I was on my own.
Put the guns down!
Max is back, and he's fallen off the wagon, a hopeless drunk haunted by murderous memories.
I felt like a fool.
He doesn't care about much anymore, and he hasn't got much to care about anyway.
But Max also has a reputation for getting the job done, and this takes him to Brazil, where he's put in charge of security for a wealthy family. The country is torn apart by poverty and civil unrest. Militant groups and corrupt police don't help the situation, and violence and kidnapping is commonplace. Naturally, all hell breaks loose, and Max's alcoholism plays a part in the mistakes that he makes. He then sets out to make amends and figure out exactly what happened.
The story takes many turns and beautifully flashes back to key events in Max's life that put him in the position he's in now.
Trouble finds us the same way you found me. Slumped in a bar, drunk on self-pity. I'd been sitting at the bar for 3 hours.
It's refreshing to have a Brazilian setting, and you can see the developers worked hard to capture the feel of its slums and culture. It's also remarkable storytelling. Max's downtrodden voiceover narrates everything you do, and at times it reminded me of Bastion's reactive narration. And, you know, if I lingered for too long in one area or wasn't sure where to go, after a while, you know, Max would let me know, which I thought was really clever.
Was there a switch in that room?
The fact that the narration is reacting to what you're doing or not doing just makes you more connected to the character, I think. And I just love Max. How could you not?
I own this town, amigo.
That's a good line. You practice that in front of the mirror in your underwear? Your father owns this town. You're nothing but a chump.
In the other games, he was always a bit of a cardboard cutout, but here he's a fully fleshed out character, complete with flaws. He's so down on himself and depressed, you really feel for the guy. The most remarkable thing is the setup of this characterization. You just know everything about Max within the first 10 minutes, what he's been through, where he's at, and where he wants to be going, which is pretty much nowhere.
And they use so many fascinating mechanics to tell a story as well. I mean, the excellent motion capture is somewhere between LA Noire and Red Dead Redemption. Blurring visuals and static distortion are a unique choice, and while it's a bit overdone, they do help to emphasize the messy mind state that Max is in.
Key words and bits of sentences will come up on screen during dialogue, and they reinforce the important bits of conversation. In fact, going back and playing this again, seeing those words come up had extra meaning the second time around, so they're all on purpose. And it just keeps you more engaged and more involved in the story. Plus, all of these characters are interesting, and they're all terrifying in their own way. I think my favourite moments were in the gang territory slums. Max is pulling up his bootstraps, and as he walks into that town and the kids are playing soccer and there's all that dancing and then all the dark stuff that follows.
Let the girls go. No one needs to die, asshole. Don't you kill her! Don't you!
just masterful.
Yeah, that was excellent. I love how you don't even know what's going on around you half the time because most of the villains don't speak English, and this just adds confusion and tension, especially during combat. One of the things they do in this game that I really appreciated is that they work hard to justify your killing spree by making you aware of the fact that the bad guys are truly bad and they do really bad things.
Yeah, in fact, the most brutal moment in the game is followed by one of the most brutal moments by a villain. So, you know, Rockstar are known for making very controversial and violent games, so it's good they've thought long and hard about this, and I think it works.
Yeah, the violence comes across very realistic, but it's not gratuitous, I thought.
Rockstar means serious business with this game. It's a very dark and serious story.
It's so well paced too, isn't it? I mean, no scene lingers too long, and the effortless transition from mini cutscene to action is just so seamless that you'll find it hard to put this game down.
Dead end.
And part of that is because the camera in the cutscenes is always moving, so when it transitions from a cutscene into player-controlled action, you barely notice it. Also, it's a small thing, but I just love the fact that he carries the gun that you have in the action into the cutscene with him. I love that.
Yeah, there's a lot of video game stuff that's been polished here that often just gets left by the wayside, especially for a shooter. Plus, that music score is above average. The way it ebbs and flows and those drums and
So many locations too, Barjo. You get a sense that they're all built larger than they need to be just to keep you in the world. Each chapter also feels really different, but is entirely self-contained. And this is by no means a short game either.
Yeah, and the way that they've set up these chapters and structured them, and the way they've made this world look so beautiful, it's got me really excited about GTA 5, actually, because I was a bit, where can they go from here with that? But now I'm like, oh, it's gonna be good. Plus, I think they've really improved the writing too, you know, from the below-average cliches of GTA 4 to the often inspired Red Dead Redemption to this, which is a truly harrowing personal tale for Max.
So I guess I've become what they wanted me to be. A killer. Some rent-a-clown with a gun who puts holes in other bad guys.
But we should move on to the action. Max is good at two things: jumping from side to side in slow motion, and shooting dudes till they're dead. This is brutal, satisfying combat, and the addition of a cover system makes it a slower, more tactical-paced game than the other Max Paynes.
As you take out enemies, a slow-mo bar fills, and this lets you slow down time. You can also do a slow-mo leap in any direction, which leads to classic action hero moments. The game encourages you to use slow-mo and leap a number of ways. Firstly, because it looks awesome, and it's so much easier to get those ever-essential headshots. But also, every enemy is a real threat, so you kind of need to use it, but it's by no means an I win button. A few bullets and you're dead, and your health doesn't regen. You'll have to hunt for old-school painkillers to stay alive. You know, I love the difficulty challenge, Barjo, but I have to admit I missed that health regen a little bit.
No, I didn't miss it at all.
Yeah, you die so easily, and there were a few checkpoints that frustrated me when I thought I was in the clear, and then one last dude came around the corner and took me out.
That's what I love about it, because when you die, it's only your own fault. I can't tell you how much I loved leaping about Hex, watching bullets fly overhead and around you, just missing, changing and reloading weapons in mid-air, and then continuing to fire while still on the ground. I especially love the aftermath after you've landed on the ground and you're just staying there and still shooting dudes and hoping that someone's going to poke their head out so you can take out one more before risking getting up and getting back into cover.
Oh, it just feels so real, doesn't it? Although sometimes your action leaps don't always go to plan. I'm happy to say that this game has made pistols fun again. I mean, a rifle's great for long range, but often a pistol is just better to use because it's so much faster. I also liked how Max holds a big gun in one hand while he fires with another. There's no slinging on the back or holding 20 guns at once here. You'll often need to make a break for some ammo, and everyone knows the best way to pick up a gun is to combat roll over it.
Yeah. One thing they've done here which is very, very clever is the construction of the locations where you're taking cover and where enemies are hiding. You're often an easy target. You haven't got much cover and enemies are always obscured by desks or tables or fences or just some way that you need to find a new angle to get to them, but you're also really trapped, which encourages you to leap out and search around. And it's so clever, and it makes all of these locations unique and interesting and fun to fight in. We've been playing this on 360 and there's so much detail drawn into the background. It's all very crisp and shiny and makes me very excited about the PC version.
Oh, and there's animations, Barjo, from Max's lunges to the enemy's crumples. The most sophisticated part about this game is how enemies take bullets and how that plays into the combat. If you shoot someone in the neck or leg, blood will gush out, they might grab it and stumble. Ragdoll is near perfect and often humorous, especially as they fall downstairs. I mean, heads have multiple entry and exit wounds. It's all very brutal and unnervingly realistic. I was also happy that later on when you start facing some tougher goons that have Kevlar, that it never felt like they took too many bullets to go down, which is a bit of a pet hate of mine. Uncharted.
I love all the decisions that go through your head in any given firefight, especially on the harder difficulties. You need to make a choice of whether you're going to go for that headshot or lay down some blind fire so the enemies take cover so you can try and pick someone off, or use your precious slow-mo to thin the herd. It's exhilarating just running and gunning it too, but basically if there's 3 enemies in a room and they're all pointing their guns at you, not even slow-mo will stop you getting holes in your face.
I love all the combat targeting options as well, Barjo. I mean, you can turn on free fire or soft or hard lock on targeting, and there are even more specific options that you can go through to really, tailor this to your combat style.
Yeah, every shooter should have all of these options.
They've taken the best parts of the gunplay from Red Dead Redemption and GTA 4 and combined them with Max Payne mechanics to make for a perfect bullet storm.
Absolutely, and I just love this AI hex. The enemy reacts to your presence better than most shooters out there. They'll blind fire, they'll take cover, they'll flank you without resorting to using grenades to displace you. There were a couple of moments where it looked like the game was going to have a stealth section, but they never played out, which was a shame.
You just feel like an action hero with Max Payne 3, and it's about those little moments. The last stand where you have one bullet to save your life, or those moments where you're forced into melee, which is a very brutal finisher, by the way.
And you're pinned down so much, you're often run out of ammo, and I like how when you go and do that melee kill, if you're out of ammo, you take their gun, just like Uncharted. But we should talk about the multiplayer.
There's your standard modes, plus some objective-based maps. We haven't unlocked that much yet, but it's hard going for the first few hours. There's a decent perk system in there called bursts too, which you activate in-game. Although the spy perk that makes you look like the opposing team's a little bit overpowered.
Yeah, that drove me nuts. I didn't like the maps though. I thought they were all just a bit too small and a bit bland compared to the rest of the game. I found with less players, it was actually more fun. It is growing on me over time though, and we haven't unlocked all the maps and modes yet. One thing they have introduced into the multiplayer is bullet time, which reminded me a lot of this awesome Matrix mod called The Specialist for Half-Life. The way the bullet time works in multiplayer is a bit confusing. Basically, whoever can see you when you activate it is affected, and if they're an enemy, they're affected negatively. It's an interesting mechanic, but it got me killed more times than it actually saved me, so maybe I just need to get better at it. Final thoughts, Hex?
Well, for me, it was just the work and the detail they put into those characters. Even the vapid, horrible ones that you hated, you know that there's real people out there like that. I just got so drawn into their story and I couldn't put this down. That combined with the incredibly seamless gameplay and mechanics, it's a 9.5 out of 10 from me.
Yeah, it just shows how important story is and what it can mean to a shooter. I think it's my favorite third-person shooter of all time. I'm giving it 9.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
So did you guess the game for this week?
It was Death Rally, the first game made by Remedy. The top-down racer was a curious mix of driving and shooting, released for PC in 1996. Remedy went on to have a lot more success a few years later when it swapped the cars for an angry cop called Max Payne.
Next week we'll be getting grubby with Dirt Showdown.
And in the lead up to E3, I'm so excited, Hex, Goose has a look at how it impacts the gaming industry.
Thanks for tweeting, tweeters, and as always, you can jump on the Facebook page and the Good Game forums, and there's the Good Game app as well, where you can leave your review of Max Payne 3. Till next time, gamers, may all your games be good ones. Hex out.
Barjo out.
How excited are you for E3? Like on a scale of 1 to 10?
That's
your official response? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
You gonna bring me back a present?
Nope.